Let's start with some of the things you asked a bunch of questions, Scott. Does your CDMO have the capability? Is your CDMO communicative? Um, how do you find those things out? What are the steps to understanding that one CDMO is better at, for example, a certain way of working or a certain technology like a CAR T or something?
Yeah, so where do you start, right? Um, Finding a CDMO is difficult, especially with the landscape the way it is today. It's really exploded. When I was working at a CDMO, there weren't many of us around. There were quite a they were large, um, or but there weren't many of them around. Now there are many players, some very large players and many other players. So to answer that question, it really does take a scoring matrix where you look at every aspect of the CDMO that is of interest to you, and really things like time people are in the company, turnaround of people, the ability to have a PM and what that PM does for you. Do they have analytics, and do they have analytics development? What in-house analytics do they do, and which ones do they outsource? Safety tests are usually outsourced. Um, when they out Other things that you might want to think about is, what does their quality system look like, and how does their quality system deal with deviations and exceptions, as well as how do they do their kappas and their change controls. All of this has to be, getting to the contracts thing that Praveen was talking about, has to eventually get into your quality technical agreement and your master services agreement. So all of that is are the things that I think about when I do that. But another critical factor is visiting the site. And that comes into very much, how does it feel? When I walk through a site, when I worked at Brammer Bio, we had a GM who said, when you walk through the bathroom, how clean is it? Because you better believe that the FDA inspector is going to walk in that bathroom when they use it, and they're going to see either a dirty or clean bathroom. And if the bathroom is dirty, you better believe that something else might be dirty in that facility. And you've got to make sure that you're looking at everything within a facility, from people to equipment to how things are placed in front of doors, if they're placed in front of doors, to how dirty the bathrooms are. And that becomes less of a matrix and more of a feeling, but you can quantify it, especially if you walk through a lot of facilities.
Right. So Praveen, let me follow up with that and ask. So my question is, every CDMO is going to tell you they have a great QA system, and that they can do this, and yes, we can do that. Can you determine whether that's 100% true without an audit, an on-site inspection audit visit to the CDMO? And would that mean if you have 4 or 5 CDOs in mind that you have to go and visit each one?
So I think from that perspective, with video conferencing now, something that we didn't really use as much before the pandemic, some of those things, remote tours, remote audits. Now, an audit is a very special situation, right? When you have access to documents, access to certain people, and when you're on site, you are walking around, people are explaining, and they're trying to show you stuff, and you are asking, responding at the same time. But I think that to Scott's point, with the video technology that we have today, there's no reason why a plant tour, it would be a small plant tour, but you would be able to see what the inside of a laboratory looks like. And I used to work for a very small company, and funding was very important to us personally and for the company, obviously. And we were always told that an investor walkthrough could happen at any time, and we were expected to keep our laboratories neat. And I said, but we're working. What does that mean? And they just said, orderly. If you don't like the word neat, orderly. If everything looks like it's supposed to be where it's supposed to be, it gives the impression to the person who's just looking there, who may not be a scientist, engineer, technician, but they see, okay, these people know enough of what they're doing that they can keep a neat environment in which they're making their product, or in our case, it was research, so that research was being done in a careful, well thought out way. So I think that is where, another example of how Scott was saying, your eyes can give you a lot of information without even asking a question as you're walking or seeing what is behind the person who's doing the talking.